Okay, we'll call general government meeting to order at 9. Oh,
You had to do the thumbs up. Now you could probably do it.
all right, we'll call general government meeting to order at 9:33. Roll call, please. Oh.
Wade?
Here.
I mean Fleming?
Here.
They're both here.
It's casual Monday.
He gets to vote twice now.
Thank you. It's great.
That's
Thanks, Pam.
Gershenson absent with notice. Hoffman?
Cool.
Cowell? Here. Hogenderfer? Quarles? Here. Long?
Here. Okay, we'll stand up for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so now we need a motion to approve the previous minutes from April 9th, 2018. Moved by Commissioner Fleming, supported by Commissioner Kowal. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. And motion to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Quarles. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Public comment. I think they're all here for the presentation. No public comment, so we'll close that and we'll move right on to the agenda. And if you folks want to go up to the front of the
Each get 10.
table there. So our first item is Board of Commissioners.
We didn't bring any music.
We gotta get a motion. So Board of Commissioners authorizing Oakland County Public Transportation Authority millage question to be placed on the 2018 election ballot. We need a motion for that. Moved by Commissioner Kowal, supported by Commissioner Quarles. Okay, and then we have everyone here for the presentation. So,
And we're
good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having us. And we're going to introduce ourselves separately as we talk. I'm John Hertel. I'm the general manager of SMART, and this is my beginning of my 8th year there. When I took over, I was told by Brooks Patterson, Bob Ficano, and whoever was running Macomb at the time, because it wasn't Mark yet. It was still a chair situation there. That this was going to be a real easy thing. And when I walked in the door, I found out, number one, that the millage was going to be in 10 weeks and they hadn't done anything about it. And the second thing I found out was that all of our buses at that time had over 500,000 miles on them. And that was beyond the appropriate federal limit, but that explained why the maintenance costs had rocketed through the roof. When I walked in here this morning, I had a flashback, but I can't think of his last name. He was Lou somebody, and he was on Sunday nights, and he was a commentator about politics. And he had a hearing here, and people were very much afraid of him. In fact, he was the person who asked George Romney the question about Vietnam, which caused George Romney to say he was brainwashed. And that was the end of George Romney's run for president. And I was 27 years old then. So I've been coming out a long time. I always enjoy coming out to Oakland County, and it's an interesting thing in my mind that we have such a great partnership between Oakland and Macomb County on so many different things. And one of the best things that has happened is that M59 finally did get under Engler widened, and when it got widened, I was there because I was chairman of the Macomb board, and I said it was like driving the Golden Spike to connect the East-West Railroad. And what M59 has become, because you're such a dynamic county and we're such a dynamic county, I live there, is that it's become so much of a thoroughfare that it's become a parking lot. Yeah. It hardly moves at all. And it's one of the reasons why SMART is so important, because SMART alleviates a great deal of vehicular traffic. And besides eliminating a great deal of that vehicular traffic, it's also a circumstance where 70% of our riders are going to work. And of course, extremely important to our economy because 70% of those people depend on SMART to get to work. The other 30% are divided amongst people who are seniors, who are either no longer able to drive or can't afford to drive, or for some reason are in a circumstance where they need us. We have our connector service that comes to their homes. They love us. Not only do they love us, but their friends and relatives love us because it frees up their friends and their relatives. I think the other thing that's important for you to note is that SMART operates on 1 mil. It is the lowest rate of any regional system in the state. The others are getting 2 mils and 3 mils. And those places like Grand Rapids and Lansing and Flint and Port Huron and so forth and so on that get 2 or 3 mils. When you add all of our square mileage together, I'm talking about Macomb, Oakland, and Western Wayne County. And by the way, it's an important thing for me to remember right now at this point. Everybody thinks that the opt-out provision that allows communities to opt out in Oakland and in Wayne counties that they chose to do, whereas Macomb didn't. Everybody thinks that that was introduced in the legislature by the suburbs. That opt-out provision was introduced by the city of Detroit so that DDOT could operate separately from SMART. So it is not a suburban opt-out, it is really a urban opt-out, and they still operate obviously separate from us. And we try to interact with them, but it's often very, very difficult for us because there is a city ordinance, and the city ordinance says that when we're driving suburbanites to work in the city, and those suburbanites are paying an income tax to the city of Detroit, and we're driving those people into the city, we're not allowed to stop once we're in the city because of that ordinance and pick people up. Recently, we've been told verbally that it's okay for us to pick them up, but there's been no change in the ordinance, and that ordinance prohibits us from sometimes picking people up that are in extreme heat or extreme cold or a storm or something like that. Anyway, to get back to the point is that if you take the next 9 systems in the state of Michigan and you put all of their square miles together of the next 9 systems that either get 2 or 3 mils, our system alone, just our system alone, is larger in square miles. And we operate it on 1 mil. What I'm pleased to tell you is that we promised the public when the last millage was passed, and you were so helpful in doing that we would buy all new buses. We have just put in our last order for the new buses, and that's the last set of buses that will allow us to have replaced all of the major line haul buses in our system over the last 3 years. So we've kept our promise to the public. Simultaneously, as we've changed our connector buses, we've changed our connector buses over to propane. And by changing our connector buses over to propane, they're cheaper, they're cleaner, they have lower maintenance costs, and they last longer. We're doing what it is that we've told the public we would do. Our maintenance costs have dropped dramatically, and because of that, one of the things you're going to see in our program is that we've been able to add a new service, and that new service is FAST, Frequent Affordable Safe Transit. And by the way, we did not go out and hire a commercial firm to come up with the name of Frequent Affordable Safe Transit. I've been keeping that name under wraps for 3 years, hoping we could use it. And that Frequent Affordable Safe Transit is now on Woodward, Gratiot, and Michigan Avenues. And it runs from Pontiac to downtown Detroit. It runs from 23 Mile Road in Mount Clemens, in Macomb on Gratiot to downtown Detroit, and on Michigan Avenue. It also not only runs to downtown Detroit, for the first time runs out to the airport. And so, because of our maintenance costs having gone down by the purchase of the new buses, we've been able to put this new service into effect. And it's only been in effect for 3 months, but I can tell you that last month's actual operating circumstances have improved so dramatically because of the fact that our ridership on those 3 roads has gone up over 20% by using the express system, because that's what FAST is. It comes by every 15 minutes, it doesn't stop as often, and it gets you to where you want to go much more quickly, and while you're getting there, you get to use Wi-Fi. Robert Kramer is my deputy, and I'm going to turn this over to him to go to the next step.
Thank you, John. Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm going to go through the couple of slides here to add some details to what Mr. Attell was talking about, and talk a little bit more about SMART in Oakland County. Just to frame kind of the conversation here today also, Megan Owens and Mark Adams are here from the OCPTA, and that's actually the item that you're being asked to consider this morning. SMART itself is not a taxing authority, and so we do not have the ability to go out and levy a tax. We're basically acting at the pleasure of a funding authority in each of the 3 counties. It's basically determining the amount, the duration of the levy, and then collecting it, and then giving it to SMART to provide transportation services in that region. And so in Oakland County, we have the OCPTA covers 24 what would be referred to as opt-in communities. So on this map, it's the blue communities. Generally, it's the southeast area of Oakland County, the communities that are highest density of both employment and population. And then the rest of the communities that are outside of the county, I'll touch on this a little bit in a few minutes. SMART still has some responsibilities for those communities, but we're not receiving that additional funding to provide kind of the full array of our services in those opt-out areas. So SMART does touch all of the communities in Oakland County, but in areas where OCPTA is collecting money and sending it to us, we're able to provide obviously kind of the full array of services that I'll talk about here in a moment. And something else to point out here on the right side of the slide is for every dollar of the local tax revenue that the OCPTA sends to SMART, we're spending about $1.78 on services. So between the state and federal dollars that we're able to leverage, you do get a pretty good return on the investment for those local tax dollars. So this map on the left kind of shows SMART's reach. You can see the southeast corner there is the darker shaded gray communities. Those are the opt-in communities. But as you can see here, the green circles are kind of the magnitude of ridership of all these different local transportation providers that we're supporting. We're administering state municipal credits. We're also administering state and federal grants that allows for operating assistance and also to help them purchase vehicles. So all of the orange symbols are actually vehicles that are titled to SMART that we lease to them for $0. But we took care of the procurement, we take care of the reporting, we help them track the maintenance and administer their program. So as I mentioned before, I'd be remiss if Jerry Poisson likes to really point out that although SMART's full array of services is confined to the southeast corner of the county, SMART really does have a role in all of Oakland County. So just brief, Mr. Attell touched on this, but you can see that SMART really does have a relatively low rate compared to the other agencies in the state. The .994 is due to the Headley rollback. So the approval in 2014 was for 1, but because of the rollbacks in Macomb and in Oakland counties, the effective rate as far as collections has gone down. So just in a nutshell, SMART is made up of several different layers of transportation services. So the ones that are most visible are the biggest percentage of our budget and have the biggest portion of our riders is the fixed route system. And I've seen, just sitting here, I've seen a couple of buses run by here. You see they're out here at the county agency. They're running a fixed schedule, a fixed route. You pull out a schedule, there's a bus that comes whenever it says so on the schedule, and who's ever waiting to pick up the bus obviously can take advantage of that. We have almost 50 routes that cover the area. I'll talk a little bit later about our new routes that Mr. Hertel talked about. But those are really, again, that's where we have a lot of people getting to work, getting to school, and other important trips around the region. The second layer is our connector service, which is a door-to-door advanced reservation, meaning that you have to schedule your trip ahead of time. It's not a dial-a-ride where you can just call up and have it come to your house, but you do have to schedule it ahead of time. The good part about that is when we have all the trips ahead of time, it allows us to be much more efficient as far as scheduling them. So we know what we have in a day, we can set the schedule rather than trying to anticipate what the demand's going to be at any time. And that is available to the open public, to the general public, sorry. Generally, most of the riders there are seniors and or disabled who need to get to medical appointments, the grocery store, visit family. If we have a situation where we can't meet all the trips for one day, we do prioritize medical appointments first, because obviously those are the most important trips that are on that system. The next layer is kind of a subset of the connector. It's called ADA. It's required by the Americans with Disabilities Act for us to provide an equivalent trip if someone's disability doesn't allow them to use our fixed route system. So if they live by a fixed route and they're going somewhere by the fixed route, where if they were able-bodied, they'd be able to just walk to the bus and ride it where they needed to go. If they could do that, if they are able-bodied and their disability prevents them from being able to do that, then we have to provide a door-to-door equivalent. That's part of the ADA Act. So that's the ADA, and that's run out of the same vehicles and the same scheduling and dispatch as our connector system. The next layer, which actually has almost the most vehicles out of any of those pods, is the Community Partnership Program. And that's a program that was developed when the first SMART millage was levied in the mid-90s. And basically it's an opportunity where SMART provides a rebate on a portion of the millage money that comes in to a bunch of these community agencies for them to run kind of an intra-community transit system, right? So oftentimes you'll see these are run out of senior centers, parks and recreation departments. SMART's providing administrative help. We're helping them plan their services. Obviously the operating assistance is there. And just like those communities I talked about earlier, we're also helping them procure vehicles and other equipment that they might need to run the service. In some cases, we're also able to help them with minor building improvements or other things they need, basically to keep that service running for their residents. But this is something that's a very critical component of our layers of service. Something that's very important, especially in the communities that are outside of kind of the core fixed route area. Really helps them get people where they need to go. And then the last line I've added here, again, emphasizes that we do have a role in all 3 counties. We actually do Monroe County as well, so that's 4 counties. But in the 3 major counties, we also have a role even in areas that are opted out. We do have the responsibility delegated to us by the state as far as administering a number of different grant programs. And so we do have a presence, and if you're out in Holly or Oxford or Milford and you see a bus with SMART driving around, it's not because it's lost its way and ended up out there. It's because there are programs out in those communities that we do support as well. So, over the last couple of years, we've had a number of additional community partnerships that we have been a part of. So, the City of Troy, the Big Beaver shuttle, and this is the picture of the old trolley bus. This actually used to be a Lake Erie Transit. It's basically a fixed route bus, but it's got the inside actually still has leather straps and hardwood seats and everything. We took that out of retirement for them to basically pilot this service. They said, hey, we want to take a shot at this. So they have this trolley style bus and then also 3 other small buses that we took out of retirement for them to pilot it. It's basically a service that initially it was lunchtime and evenings during the week. Since then, they've decided to double down and extend the program out for at least another year. They've moved the hours to be in the evenings only, and we've actually identified grant funds and soon will be placing an order for a new version of this trolley and also 3 new vehicles now that they've decided to continue moving forward with the program. So this has really been a very successful partnership. The city's very happy. that we've been able to help them out. Both we help them develop the routes, the signage, the vehicles, and now we're happy to help them move the program forward with some new vehicles. In Royal Oak, you may have seen in the news quite a bit. We've been working with Marie Donegan's leading a task force there that the city's heading. They're taking a look at what they might consider doing as far as an enhanced local transit. So SMART has that $1 million worth of funding we get from OCPTA spread across all of the communities. Obviously, there's a certain level of service we can provide within that funding. In Royal Oak, they're looking for more routes that can get kind of inside the city. So they want to have anyone in the city can get downtown or to Beaumont or to the zoo with a pretty good frequency, and that's kind of above and beyond what our $1 million can support. So in their case, they're looking at, hey, if we were going to maybe levy an additional local tax to have that next level of transportation, what would it look like? We're helping them kind of navigate that process, look through some of the options, how they might have either a shuttle or a fixed route, or maybe partnering with somebody like Uber or kind of the new mobility solution. So working through that is very exciting to be part of the process, and it's just another example of how SMART can have a value added to the community, even outside of just the service, the bus service we provide. Another good example is the Ferndale Art and Smart program. So we had a couple of different community stakeholders in Ferndale that wanted to have a community art project to coincide with last year's Dream Cruise. And we actually allowed them to adopt a shelter that we were otherwise going to remove. And they repainted it and installed a green roof and have a public art space that's there. It's on 9 Mile just west of Woodward. Was featured in some of the materials for some of the national magazine coverage, had some pictures and coverage about the shelter. It was a great example of kind of an outside-of-the-box partnership, and we're hoping to adapt that program to, we've got a couple other communities, Pontiac and Clawson, that both would like to kind of implement this same model in their community. So we're hoping to implement that later this year. And then in Pontiac, Madonna especially has been doing some very good and hard work in Pontiac. When they went through their financial troubles a few years ago, they actually disbanded their community partnership program. At the time, I believe the city had 125 employees, and they went down to maybe a dozen or so. And at that time, they felt that they needed to kind of do away with that program. We ended up stepping in and picking up with some of our connector people, reproducing and running that service for them while they kind of got back on their feet. And now there's a couple different groups, including the mayor, who is really interested in kind of reigniting that service. And so we've been working for almost 2 years now at a number of different community meetings and outreach, and hopefully there will be a new program put in place where we can hand the keys back over literally to the city to grow and develop their new partnership program. So just a few minutes here about kind of some finer details of our promises kept, so to speak. So when the OCPTA was gracious enough to increase the millage to 1 in 2014, there's a couple of things that SMART promised or identified as why we needed the additional funding. We had seen over a 35% decrease in our revenue because, as you're all very well aware, the property tax values in all 3 counties went down significantly. And especially given that in Wayne and Oakland counties, we're kind of the inner ring or inner 2 rings of suburbs. Most of the times those were the communities that were hit the hardest during that downturn, and it really translated to the funding that was available to SMART. So we had over a $5 million deficit that would have been in place if the millage didn't go up. We also had the union contracts that were coming up, and as Mr. Ertel identified, we had our whole fleet basically of buses that all needed replacement, and we didn't have any funding set aside. We had been maximizing our grant dollars to balance the budget as the revenues kept going down, and we didn't have any way to do that. As he mentioned, I'm very happy to report that we've been able to meet these promises, and with the decrease in maintenance costs from replacing the fleet, we had enough funding to be able to put this new service in place as well. So let me just go over those really quick. So we balanced the budget. I don't want to have to keep turning around, so I'm going to follow on my paper here. We eliminated the projected deficit and freed up the capital grants for capital needs. Out of the capital needs, within that subset, we prioritized buses first. So we also hadn't spent a lot of money on maintenance and upkeep of the facilities. They were safe, but things like parking lots and roofs and HVAC systems are all things that need to be addressed. We loaded the buses up front, and so kind of now our second phase, now that the buses are replaced, is we've got a couple big projects, $8 and $10 million projects that are kind of ready to go, assuming we can continue our funding moving forward, to do things like replace and repair underground fuel storage tanks, roofs, parking lots, and that HVAC systems that are outdated at the 3 facilities that we have. Right after, or quickly after the millage, we placed our first order for 59 buses. Generally, the big buses take about 18 to 24 months from the day that we order them for them to be delivered. So we had a procurement set up where we had 174 buses that were approved, but then once you have the funding and you order them, it takes 18 to 24 months. Again, basically you put in the pipeline. It actually only takes about 10 to 15 days for them to build the bus. It's about waiting in line to get to the spot when it's your turn. So we took the first 59 went into service summer of 16. Then our second order for 80 went into service this past summer. And we placed the order for the 35, and we got some good news. They bumped us up in the schedule, and so we're hoping to have those delivered and on the road by the end of this calendar year. And at that point, we will have replaced all the vehicles that were in the fleet as of fiscal year 2004. So that was kind of the big group that was the oldest buses. The small buses, we've been replacing and upgrading these as they become eligible. So just orders of magnitude, we have about 250 of the fixed route buses. We have 110 of the small buses that run connector service. As those are becoming eligible, we've been replacing with propane fuel. The propane price has been kind of hovering around maybe a little bit above $1 a gallon. So it's a lot cheaper than running the diesel buses. It burns cleaner, so it actually has lower maintenance. And it runs a lot quieter, so it's actually a much more comfortable riding experience for our passengers and anyone else that we're driving around, on the outside of the bus. So we just did place another order for 22 in March to replace another set of those. And then we're always continually placing orders as we've secured the grants for community buses and vans to support those community partnership programs. And also in that group would be the communities that are outside of our opt-in areas but are still taking advantage of some of those grants we administer. So we just placed another order for 47 of those in March. All right. So I mentioned a little bit about the facility renovations. This picture is an aerial view of our terminal in Troy, which is the Oakland County terminal. We also have one in Clinton Township for Macomb County, and then in Inkster for Wayne County, so basically one for each county. Over the past couple of years, the Wayne terminal has had the parking lot replaced. Oakland is next up for that one. Oakland has a newer roof. We had to install propane fueling stations at each terminal in order to be able to use the buses that required propane. We were able to use some grant dollars to do that. And again, those upcoming projects that we're excited to move forward with would be the fuel storage tanks underground, a new fuel management system, and HVAC systems for all 3 terminals, in addition to some other projects. In addition to the facility renovations, and I had this question, someone has said, well, when facilities, do you mean shelters as well? Generally speaking, the facility renovations is for the big terminals, but certainly we do have a number of small structures that are around the communities. Over 200 of our highest ridership locations, we have some form of shelters. So our newest model is, and actually these are manufactured by Brasco, which is in Madison Heights, right here in Oakland County. They actually have a great operation. The newest shelters, which is the upper right-hand corner here, are beautiful glass curved roof structures. They all have a solar panel on the roof that powers a LED light that comes on when it's dark out. And they also have USB charging ports. So if you're standing at the bus and you need to charge your phone, you can actually plug in and charge your phone or other device while you're at the stop. In addition, when we have areas where either the riders or the boardings are lower or we don't have room for a shelter, we do still have a lot of locations where we put in a concrete pad with benches, trash cans, some cases bike racks, again to help make the riding experience more attractive, comfortable, and convenient for our riders. We do have a program we're working on, an Adopt-A-Stop, where we allow businesses to kind of formally adopt maintenance, not maintenance as far as repairs, but as far as just keeping it generally clean in exchange for having their business name on the shelter, similar to the Adopt a Road program. And we're looking to make that, we just started it last year, we're hoping to grow that in the coming years. And then I already mentioned Art Smart. This is a picture of them actually painting the shelter when they were doing the initial application. And like I mentioned, eventually they actually put a living roof, green roof on top as well. So next time you're in Ferndale, maybe check it out. So with the maintenance costs down from the new vehicles, we were able to when I say sustainable, it has a couple of meanings. First of all, we like to consider ourselves kind of an eco-friendly thing because we're taking cars off the road and reducing congestion and pollution that way. But in this case, sustainable really means that it's financially sustainable. We were very careful to make sure that the improvements were able to fund out into the future. We don't want to overcorrect as far as things are in good shape. So this is a conservative, sustainably funded new service that we launched. As John mentioned, it's had initial success, over 20% increase in ridership on these 3 corridors already, which is pretty significant for only 3 months. Usually it takes 6 to 12 months before you really see a service start to come into its own. And we're hopeful with the improved weather that number will continue to go up. So basically this service is it's limited stop service, meaning that it only stops every mile or two, and that allows for kind of a quicker and smoother ride. As far as usually we stop every couple of blocks. So in this case, we're looking for something that's kind of a different layer of bus service that focuses on picking up people at the very areas where you can transfer to other routes, or maybe areas where you have an opportunity to park and get on the bus, and then getting them to where they need to go as quickly as possible. The buses, as you can see from this exciting picture, the buses have a different livery on the side. And this helps them stand out from the other routes and service that we have, because we still did keep all of our local service on these 3 corridors as well. On these buses only, we've been piloting onboard free Wi-Fi to increase the convenience for the riders as well. We're working right now on, we've actually ordered from Brasco an enhanced shelter, which looks physically similar to the other shelter. It's a little bit bigger, but it'll have a information screen with next bus arrival. It'll have a blue light emergency phone to get to the police or to our customer service, 2 buttons, and also benches and the trash cans that we usually have at our stops. So we're excited to be putting those in place soon. And we've been looking for more opportunities for partnership here. So we've been working hard with the zoo on opening up kind of an official park and ride area underneath the overhang of the parking deck. If any of you understand what I mean by that, there's a kind of 25 or 30 spaces there that we're hoping to get MDOT literally to unlock for us to park some cars there. So that's just an example. We've also on Gratiot, we've been working with Meyer to locate a stop inside their Meyer location that's at the end of the route at 23 miles. So just like everything else we do, we're looking for opportunities to partner along all of our routes to improve the accessibility of the service. So this is kind of the system map on the right. The red line is Woodward, green is Gratiot, blue is Michigan. As Mr. Rattel mentioned, Michigan does connect to the airport. So each of these dots are the only stops. So that's the kind of the limited stop idea. Woodward, for example, has 15 or 20 stops from end to end. If you took that stretch with our local bus, you'd be at like 120 individual stop locations. So you can see basically 90% of the opportunities for the bus to have to start and stop are gone. Obviously there's a trade-off, because that means that 90% of the stops you can't get on this ride. And that's been part of our public education outreach campaign, as far as we have some commercials and community meetings so people understand how to use this service and how to use the local service to connect to these routes as well. So just a little, briefly, a little more specific for Woodward itself. This is a little blow-up of where the stops are located. One stop we've already added is for Little Caesars Arena. Originally we didn't have that one because we saw a lot of people that wanted to use the arena there, and it was a little bit far to walk from south of Fox Theater back up to the arena. It's 15 minutes from Birmingham south, Once you get to Birmingham, every other bus either goes to Pontiac or to Troy, so obviously there it's 30 minutes if you're on those legs. But for Birmingham South, you'll see a bus every 15 minutes, and that's basically 6 days a week. The service runs 7 days a week. It comes a little less frequently on Sunday just because there's less people looking to get around. But really what we see is to have this service available basically all week, all the time. We've seen a lot of people that have been coming back to SMART who in the past, when we didn't have a service in the middle of the day during the week, that was enough for them to feel like they would need to find a different way to get to work. And so we've seen a lot of people, again, appreciate that this is available basically from 5 a.m. till 1 or 2 a.m. Every day. If they're going to the sporting events to work, it's always there and available for them to use. Just 2 more slides real quick of technology. We mentioned the Wi-Fi on board. We're always looking to make sure that SMART is kind of staying on the cutting edge as far as technology, especially if it's technology that can help us make our service more efficient and useful. So we're piloting the Wi-Fi on board. The enhanced shelters I mentioned have a number of technology items that can help make the service easier to use. We've been working with MDOT and Oakland and Macomb counties to try to pilot some connected vehicle applications. It's still kind of a work in progress, but we're looking to have more news on that this year. And we're also piloting with a group called Looking Bus, which is a specific technology improvement that goes to buses for those who are either blind or otherwise disabled, to help them navigate the system. So putting sensors in the stops and on the buses, and then they have a thing in their phone that can help them make sure that they get audible instructions to get to the stop. They can actually, the phone can tell them the bus is approaching and they should get on that one. And then when they're on the bus, it can tell them that they need to pull the cord when the stop's coming by knowing where they are with GPS instructions. So this is something we're piloting with Looking Bus as well. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. Looking ahead, we're going to continue balancing our budget, continue to put service on the road and work on these improvements, and continue to partner with DDOT on the routes in the city. We also have, last thing is we have 2 planning projects this year. One is a asset management plan that's already underway. The last one is an operations analysis. We got some state and federal grant dollars to do a whole analysis of our systems. We'll have a survey data for every route and recommendations for ways we can improve our route network to maximize service. So did I miss anything, John?
Very thorough.
Thank you.
Now we'll have our test, right? See who's listening good.
I think the last thing I want to say to you, other than I wanted to give Mark or Madonna an opportunity if they want to add anything at this point. Mark?
No, thank you. Well, I would like to say a self-serving statement. I think this is, I've been doing this since 1995 when I helped incorporate the OCPTA. And we've successfully passed millages since then, and I hope this one's going to be just as smooth as all the other ones. So.
And he gave me the perfect segue for me to be able to say, in conclusion, I'm really proud of the fact that regardless of what you might hear from the Detroit media, and I would literally identify it as the Detroit media, people really like SMART, and I'll tell you how they really like SMART. There's nothing like having people vote with their pocketbooks. The last millage, which was the millage increase, it brought us up to just under 1 mil because of Headley. That millage increase over the 3 counties was passed by the public by a 66% margin. I don't know if millage is passing by 66%.
Parks and Rec.
Oh, yeah, Oakland County Parks was 74 was Oakland County Parks, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was,
And the part that I
Which is
like to say,
unbelievable.
particularly when I'm talking to you, is that in every precinct in Oakland County that SMART was on the ballot, every single precinct, SMART was victorious. Did not lose one single precinct in one of those communities. So we're very, very proud of that, and proud of the partnership that we have with your very, very efficient county government. Thanks very much.
okay, we have some questions, initial questions from Commissioner Fleming is first, and then I have Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you very much for bringing so many people today and such an excellent presentation there, Mr. Kramer. We really appreciate it. And I have definitely noticed the improvement in the buses, just the looks of the buses, and you've bus is a great improvement. What I do struggle with is when I look on these buses, I don't see people in Troy and Clawson riding them. I don't see the ridership. So what I'm interested in is some data that will give me some idea of how many people are actually riding the buses in Troy. In other words, in Troy, what percentage of the people that work, go to doctors, whatever, are actually taking the buses versus taking vehicles? Is it 10%, less than 10%? Do you have any data like that? And I'll have some other follow-up questions, but one other one is related to ridership. What percentage of your budget comes from rider fees compared to government subsidy taxes?
Well, it's extremely low. It depends on the community.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the nation, first, people need to know that there is not one system in the nation that pays for a system through ridership. The highest I know of, it would be either, I can't remember, Seattle or Portland, is in the area of about 40%. So we're talking about communities where they have monorail and all kinds of systems that have been in place for a long time. I would say that we're talking in the area of in the teens, depending on the percentage for the various communities. So I might be a little bit low, but I'd rather be conservative on that. Most of these programs are programs that are programs from the village that are funding this, or from federal and state sources.
I just want to add, I happen to sit on the board of directors for Troy Medigo, which is
Yes.
the community
Great.
partner program that Robert mentioned, and it receives a lot of funding through SMART. But their operations are increasing so steadily that last year they added a bus, and now they're up to 5 buses. They since went back to the city, which has not funded them for years, got funding for an additional 6 bus that they're going to be ordering. And then just at the meeting this past week, they have plans to go back to the city again to ask for another $100,000, which will allow them to make their staff full-time now to get benefits and that type of thing, and get another bus. So if you, and I can get you that data along with the SMART data on the buses for the ridership in Troy, and those are specific medical appointments. They cater to the senior and the disabled that Troy Medigo provides.
Yes. Can I just follow up there?
Yeah,
Madam Chairman?
certainly.
Medigo is a great success.
Yeah.
I remember Joe Rhodes way back in the day helped get that started. I'm a good friend with Joe, and she's very proud of that. I'm very proud of Medigo, and I do think it's been a great success, and support that 100%. But when I see the other buses, the fast buses, the other smart buses coming through, I just don't see the riders on those. But the Medigo, I agree, is a great success. Thank you for that and for all your involvement with that. But I'm still struggling with the ridership and the fees there. Haven't got an answer on
It's about
that.
14%. If you
Oh,
talk about the
there.
whole system, you're talking about income from ridership.
Okay, 14%.
And the thing I did want you to know is that the best way for me to answer you about ridership is I live on a farm at 30 Mile Road. And my office is in downtown Detroit at the Buell Building. I'm right across from the Guardian Building. And if I get on the bus at 23 Mile Road, which is something you can do in Macomb County, and you get on the bus at 23 Mile Road, you have people that have come over there to the Meyer parking lot. They've parked in order to get on it, and there aren't a whole lot of people. Okay? By the time I get downtown, bus is filled with people standing. And so, and that is also a situation where once they get to 8 Mile, they can't pick people up. So by the time they've gone from 23 Mile Road to 8 Mile Road, they've gone to people filling all the seats and standing.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it is gradually increasing, not only in terms of as you go closer to where the jobs are, but on top of that, it's a circumstance that now with the new FAST system, in the first 3 months, and we've only been running it 3 months, and we've kept our other system running, our passenger increase is already over 20%. I think what you have to do is do what we've been doing, which you mentioned right away. We had to get better buses. The buses had to look better. They had to be cleaner inside. One of the things I'm really happy about is we renegotiated 5 union contracts without any work stoppage. And it was a situation where we did that, where we not only didn't have work stoppage, we were in a situation where both they and the non-union employees took various reductions in terms of the circumstances for us to keep going. So we're doing better, and our intention is to continue to do better because we're on the right trajectory now. We're on what I would say a limping along trajectory for a very long time.
Okay, I have Commissioner Hoffman, then Commissioner Kowal.
Thank you again for joining us today. I have 3 questions. 1, how much does it cost to convert a bus to propane, if you know? I'm just curious.
So you're talking about a existing bus being converted
Is
to
that,
propane?
you buy them already set up for?
Yeah.
Okay, you don't
They did.
convert any old buses?
No.
Okay.
And actually, the process, you seem interested in that. The process is you basically take a new gasoline-powered bus, and then Roush has a division that's actually done in Detroit. I think it's by City Airport. They actually do the conversion of that gasoline powertrain and engine over to the propane.
Do you have any idea what it costs? I'm just curious.
I think it's about $10,000, and I know you can
Well,
convert.
That's a great savings when you're paying $1 a gallon. versus
Yes,
2 or 3.
the fuel savings are incredible, and then when you also factor in the reduced maintenance as well, it's a home
They
run.
last long.
Right, it's a home run for sure.
Well, thank you. Also, I'm in District 2, which covers Holly and Highland, and I know we have some system there provided by you guys, I think, SMART. But how does that work? How's that paid for? Because they're an opt-out community.
Correct.
It's
So,
one of those partnerships.
right, so there's 2 systems probably that cover your area. So there's the Milford Highland system,
Yes.
which now is just Highland.
Right.
And then there's the Holly area system, let's call it. So for both of those, none of the OCPTA dollars that come to SMART fund that program. There's two main pots of funding as far as for operating assistance from the state. There's specialized services, which is specifically for seniors and disabled, and that's a few thousand for each system. It's kind of each ride you get a couple bucks reimbursement to help the cost. That's available to any community, whether they're in an opt-out, opt-in, or an opt-out, right? So you've got everyone from Royal Oak to Highland can take advantage of that program. And then you also have what are called municipal credits, which is a kind of a formula, Act 51 sharing by the state. It's by a per capita formula. Every community in all 3 counties gets that from the state, and it comes through SMART. So those are the 2 operating assistance programs. There's also a federal program. It's called Section 5310, which all the communities, opt-in and out, can apply to SMART for operating assistance and for capital needs like buses and facilities and other equipment. And then we have a process where we review those applications. There's no priority in that program given to opting in or opting out, and those are dollars that, again, we administer to help fund those programs. And then also, in a lot of cases, communities might use other local sources like CDBG dollars, or NODA has a $250,000 levy that they use to support their system as well. And so it's kind of a mix, but those are the ways that SMART supports those systems.
Okay, and lastly, there's the proposal for the RTA tax on the ballot this year. And if that passes, how will that work with your service area? Will you guys partner with them at all? Will there be duplication of service? You're waiting for that question, were you?
I thought actually it wasn't going on.
First, poor Megan Owen has to hear me say this for the 800th time. My two brothers and I, who were all eventually in elected politics, and I was for 32 years on that development.
I thought they didn't. I thought Pauson said it's not called.
We were
I can
born
have the
and
vote.
raised in Detroit, as our parents were. And in 1956, our parents on a Sunday took the three of us, I was 9, to Gratiot Avenue. And my family had a business on Chalmers on the east side. And we were taking to Gratiot Avenue on a Sunday in 1956, and we all said, why are we going to 7 Mile and Gratiot, which at that time 7 Mile and Gratiot had 3 department stores and 3 dime stores. Now, there's people in this room that don't know what dime stores are.
It's like a dollar store
Wait a
today.
minute. 5 and 10.
But to have 3 dime
5 and 10.
stores and 3 department stores at one intersection was a gigantic place at that time. And Detroit was booming in 1956, absolutely booming. And we said, why are we going here on Sunday? All the stores are closed. Because on Sundays then, they were all closed. And our parents said, we're taking you there because today's the last day we're running streetcars in Detroit. Tomorrow the streetcars are going to be sold in Mexico City. Now the last time I checked, by the way, streetcars are still running in Mexico City, those that we sold. So they were pretty damn good streetcars, to tell you the truth. But it was a circumstance where that entire system was pulled up. And then the next thing that happened was that day we went to my grandmother's and she said, well, you know, it's a shame because when I came in from the Thumb, she lived on a farm and was raised on a farm in the Thumb. She said, on Sundays, I could get on something called an interurban and run up to Port Huron, and my family would pick me up and take me to the farm because it was run on a rail, on rails, and this interurban system was a light rail system. And that was torn out right after World War II. So we had this incredible system that went to Port Huron, Flint, Ann Arbor, and Toledo, plus the streetcars in Detroit, and all of it torn out by '56. Then the rest of the country decided that while they were buying cars from Detroit, they would also imbibe themselves by continuing to improve their systems. Even the late ones like Denver and Phoenix have come along and improved their systems. We've never done that here. In fact, our express system, fast system, is the first improvement in transit in Southeast Michigan in 20 years. It's a circumstance where the RTA was set up to try to create some kind of a massive regional improvement. The problem is that there's a major disagreement, and that disagreement is allowed by the legislation, which was passed by the legislature, to have a board, and the board decides how they want to set up the RTA and what they want the RTA to do. And because each of the 3 counties and the city of Detroit all have representatives on there, and there is this disagreement, there is difficulty as to getting a ballot proposition on the ballot. And until there can be a compromise agreement, I don't think you're going to see this on the ballot. If it was on the ballot in November, that would come after us because we're seeking being on the ballot in August as we always have. If it was on the ballot, it would be in November. And if it succeeded, it would be a separate millage in addition to our millage. And we would be placed in a position where I would have to go to meetings along with the head of DDOT and the head of the Q line and the head of the circular line
People mover.
in downtown Detroit. And I would have to sit at a meeting and to some extent work out compromises with them or be even in some cases told what to do if I wanted funding. And we don't know how that would actually really work unless it got approved. And there was a millage to then additionally divide up, it would supplement the millage that we have. So there are a lot of questions out there about this.
All right, one final comment. They need to get rid of that rule where you can't pick up people over 8 Mile. I mean, all that does is hurt ridership, hurts the residents, and hurts your system.
I was under the impression
Well,
No,
so
what
he
they've done
mentioned that.
Yeah, what they've done is they've
that
told us
verbally.
that they have verbally stopped enforcing it. But the city council has refused to eliminate the ordinance. And we've shown them the ordinance over and over and over again and said, we're not comfortable with you having a city ordinance that prohibits us from picking people up in your city. It's nice that you said it's okay, but it's a circumstance where not only in reality, but in terms of cooperation, it would be a really good step in terms of taking that ordinance off the books.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, I have Commissioner Kowal and then Commissioner Quarles.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, was it former senator, representative, or all of the above?
I was the former senator.
Former senator. Thank you, and every.
My mother used to get us mixed up.
I can imagine. But thank you for your presentation here today, and it is, it's a conundrum, I will admit that, but I do have a couple of questions, and then just a general statement, I guess. You talk about that we have 1 mill here, and other places they have 2 to 3 mills or different. But I guess what is a mill worth here versus worth other areas? I have that question, if you have a breakdown on that.
David's going to.
Okay.
Good morning. I'm David Sabuda. I'm the Director of Finance for SMART. And 1 mill we're estimating on the resolution is
Does it say?
$30.6 million.
Okay.
At SMART, we estimated 29.1. David Heber did a nice job and came up with a little bit larger number than we had estimated. So to answer your question, $30 million brings in 1 mill here in Oakland County. In Wayne County, it's 16.6 million, and in Macomb County, 25.8 million. To give you a feel for the number of what 1 mill brings in by county. So in total, we're looking at approximately between $72 and $74 million from the 3 counties.
But I'm asking how we compare to Flint and the Grand Rapids and all these other areas.
I'm sorry.
What 1 mill means in this area is totally different than what it means in another area.
The only area I can really compare to would be Flint. Okay, so you're looking probably half of the value. So you're looking at 30 million versus, and the only reason why I know that is I used to be the finance director of Flint. So you look at about $30 million.
That's why they have 2 mil, 3 mil on their taxes.
So we're half of Flint?
No, about the same. About the same.
And how many mills do they get for the transit? Is that the one there's?
That was on that, was it on that
Point
slide?
something? Or
Yeah.
It's on there somewhere.
1.225.
Oh, 1.225.
Some of them got 2 or 3. I
See, now
agree.
there's
Saying
places
no.
like Grand Rapids, whose property values are quite good, they're getting 3 mills.
Oh,
There are places like Lansing that are getting 2 mills.
but Lansing wouldn't be as much
So
as
it's
here.
a circumstance.
Lansing wouldn't be.
And I guess I have to always throw in, I just can't help myself. I probably should just zip it at this point.
But if you're like me, you won't.
I was chairman of the Macomb board when we put in SMART. And when we put in SMART in Macomb, we put in a system that required that no one can opt out. So no one is allowed to opt out in Macomb County. Now, here's the reason I mention that. I talk to people around the country, and since I've had this job, I've only gone on 1 trip to another part of the country to look at anything else. When I talk to people around the country who run systems, I cannot find any other system in the country that allows opt-outs. And from all the other sources we've used, we cannot find any other system in the country that allows opt-outs. Now, I'm not here to criticize opt-outs, but what I am here to tell you is that now that I'm running this, I can tell you that it's a lot more efficient for me. It isn't just about money. It's a lot more efficient for me to run Macomb County where everybody is in the system than it is for me, for instance, to run Western Wayne County, or when I get to one of the biggest communities, Livonia, and Livonia is opted out. I'm not only losing the money, it makes no sense because I got buses operating on all the sides of Livonia, but Livonia is not opted in. It's almost like running a freeway that allows opt-outs. Well, you wouldn't run a freeway that had opt-outs. You wouldn't run a railroad that had opt-outs. But here we have this opt-out situation. So what I'm saying to you is only this. If you want to have opt-outs, that's up to the people here. I don't go around trying to twist arms. We do offer, and we are right now, in fact, engaging in conversations with some communities about opting in, but only at their request. We've indicated if they'd like to talk to us, we'd be happy to talk to them. Those circumstances are circumstances when we say opt in and they want to talk about it, we try to customize service, literally customize service to making it easy for them to opt in. Because when we get them to opt in, we want them to be happy. We want them to feel like they're getting their money's worth. But it's a circumstance where it really causes us to have much more difficulty in terms of being able to use our money well by having the opt-outs. And it makes it hard.
And you kind of led me to my next question. What's the process for the communities that are currently opted in? Do they all have to pass resolutions to continue to be opted in, or are they automatically opted in unless they opt out?
So basically, the best way to explain it is think of the communities that opted in are basically members of OCPTA. So when they opt in, they become members. They're members until they say otherwise. So if they want to opt out, so to speak, basically that maneuver is they're asking to be taken off the membership list of OCPTA. That's probably the easiest way to describe it.
Okay, thank you. And then my last thing is that you're asking for a Headley override, which I'm having issues with. We just recently reduced Oakland County tax millage because we could. I mean, we were in the position to do that, but because considering what's going on with property values and whatnot, we felt it was the right thing to do. And a lot of other taxing entities have had to live by what's going on with the Headley amendment. And since you're asking for a 3-year renewal, 4 years, okay. I would imagine that situation might reverse itself over time. But I'm having since so many other entities have had to swallow that and live within that, I'm having a really hard time with that override.
Commissioner, to answer your question, best way I can approach it is this, is to come back from where Oakland County, the rate Oakland County was at, which is 98.5 cents to $1. It's $1.37 in tax increase for a $200,000 home on an annual basis. So when you look at going from $98.68 to .9863 to $1, you're looking at $1.37. For a $100,000 home, it would be roughly half, or 68 cents, and on a $150,000 home, you're looking at $1.03. So that's what the roll-up would cost, going from what you're paying.
$1.03 for $150,000. No one has less than $150,000 homes.
And I think part of the rationale too, and again, it's the OCPTA is really the one that's setting that rate and setting the time frame. I think that part of the feeling was, and they can speak for themselves, but I'll give it a shot, is with each county being different as far as the different funding sources that go to SMART, the idea was to try to have one consistent number. So like in Wayne County, they haven't had any overrides, their number is 1. In Macomb County, I think their overrides have taken them to .993.
Right.
And so each of the three are different, and I think there was some desire, Megan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but.
Sure, yeah, as chair of the, Megan Owens, chair of the OCPTA, we did have some discussion as to whether to maintain it at the .98 or wherever the rollback will end up as, but did feel like partially because, in order to ensure that all three counties were asking for the same rate that we felt it would be better to ask for the full 1 mil. And also, that is what voters had supported 4 years ago, and we believe voters will still support a full 1 mil for this important service. So for voter consistency and the support level, we chose to recommend request a full 1 mil on this year's ballot as well.
And please note, the rate will roll back again. As we go through life over the next 4 years, Headley will come into play again, and as property values go up, the rate will roll back.
Okay. Okay, you all set, Commissioner Colwell? Commissioner, are you okay for right now? Commissioner Quarles?
Thank
And then
you.
Commissioner Fleming.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is, I'm going to look at it from the positive side, that you do get this on the ballot to ensure that it passes. What's the promotion or plan for campaigning?
Oh, it's, what we're really gonna campaign on more than anything else is we're gonna campaign on the fact that we made promises and we've kept those promises. The other thing we're gonna campaign on is the three things that we always campaign on. Number one, 70% of the people getting to work. Number two, getting people who are seniors and disabled to work. And number three, making sure that people who run businesses can get their employees there.
No, I have great appreciation for the one on getting your employees there. For a number of years, when my husband and I were in 7-Eleven business, we had the hardest time getting employees there to Farmington Hills and downriver. My other question was on, since they opt out, is there a process that they have to go through to opt back in?
Yes. Yes, and it depends on the county. But usually the circumstance is a situation of either the city council and the mayor opting the community in. Sometimes it would be the community having a vote.
Thank you.
Okay, and then go ahead, continue.
Earlier, if I understood correctly, it mentioned 4 counties are involved in this. Wayne.
Yeah, the RTA situation is a 4-county situation. It also includes Washington.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, then Commissioner Fleming.
Thank you. Why the August ballot versus the November ballot when we have more representation?
I can't explain why SMART first did that, but it has gone on now for decades, and so we have stuck with it mainly because it's meant success. I really do believe if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Okay. All right, so we are on, well, I don't know what the process is for that though, Commissioner Colwell. You can do?
Yeah, I still have issues over the Headley override, and I do want to support this if I can, but I understand we have a process for referring something to the full board without a recommendation.
and then it goes to the full, because there is a, right, it has to go to the full board.
Right.
So we could do it, just refer it to the full board?
If you do a report. when you
Report to the full board, and then you can get your information more. Is that
Well,
for you?
quite frankly, we have 3 people here who are members of the opt-out communities, so
Right,
it's a
yeah.
little bit lopsided there. And
Right.
I think if it goes to the full board, it would perhaps be more representational of the opt-in communities.
And this is timely, you need it to go to the full board, right, for the August, for the language and everything, that's what I said, we can't, oh, okay. So there isn't a report, right, because this is a resolution. Because it's a resolution, so look at your, resolution
Yeah.
and
Well,
see.
If it's not unanimous, then it goes to the full board.
Well, it goes to the full board, it has to go to the full board
Right, but
anyway.
if we all vote for it, then it's not a consent agenda. But I think
Oh.
Eileen's making a
Oh.
valid point that
Right.
we have
Regular
concerns
agenda.
about the Headley
Okay, so you just wanna
override.
vote no.
But we're in
Go on the
opt-out
regular.
communities, so I'm not sure that that's really a fair representation.
If one person votes no, it could go on the board and then it won't be on consent
I'll do that
agenda.
just so it can
You
have
know what
that
I'm saying?
discussion.
Then it won't go, then it will get conversation on the regular agenda.
I don't
Because
want to.
I think it's a time, I think because the other, if we were gonna do the Parks Millage, it's a time issue now for August, I'm sure of it.
This is a old legislative thought. What about people abstaining from?
Can't do that.
I don't think-
Abstaining,
I
we
don't-
don't.
Yeah, no.
Well, the only reason, certainly we don't want to lose any money because we don't have any money.
Right.
And to tell you the truth, what really worries me besides the fact that we don't have any money, and we have the largest service area to serve, is, as Robert said, we want all 3 counties to go into this with the identical same amount. Because we don't want anybody to say, well, how come they got, we don't want to give anybody any excuses
And then they're-
saying, we're voting no because our county got treated differently than others. That's one of the problems with the RTA. Smart's never had that problem. It's a circumstance where, I understand the principle, I really do. But it's a circumstance where it's a small amount, a very tiny amount, and we really need it, and we're gonna really need it, and I'll tell you why we're gonna really need it. Because when this millage passes, the first thing that's gonna happen is the union contracts are going to run out. And the unions are gonna come to me and say, well, you bought all the
Yes, I don't
buses,
care. We have it.
and now you're running a new fast system. We want more money.
Right.
If what now?
The unions. The contracts of the.
All 5 contracts.
So they could
They'll
do
say you just bought a bunch of new
0.8 on
buses,
this,
so
and
you can pay us more money.
And they're all-
Well, that's we're gonna have to do.
That's one.
Well, I'm just giving you a practical situation.
Just trying to get, okay, go ahead, Commissioner Quarles.
Yeah, thank
We
you.
could do that if you want.
Are there opt-out communities in Macomb County?
No.
Are there any opt-out in Wayne?
Yes.
Yeah, Livonia, he said, which is big.
How do they handle the vote at the commission? Does they?
The commission in Wayne County does not vote.
Yeah, that's what I had been told.
I have one more question.
Okay, Commissioner Hoffman?
What's the millage rate right now with the Headley rollback? It's point.
Is it?
9863.
Oh, I thought it was
9863.
Oh, I thought it was 994.
How much is that generating in 2017 or 18? Because your millage is up in 18, the end of the year.
So,
Yeah, the end of 18. So how much is that amount generating in 2018, and how much will that amount if you left it the same? Or would it roll back more next year? Do we know what it roll back to next year? I know it's based on, I know.
that would be a date.
Just in case.
I'm gonna have to
Do you wanna do that?
So we're looking at, for July,
Drag it down to.
excuse me, the upcoming
Have the amount.
tax bill.
Yeah.
We're looking at $30 million.
So that's their issue, I think.
Okay, and for, the 18 tax bill, we were looking at, $29,800,000.
You can make a
Okay, wait a
motion,
minute, what's
Nancy's
the,
good with it,
what's the
Bill.
30 million?
That would be the one that's what's coming out.
Oh, if it's a 1
So that
mil.
gets it out. If they
One
wanna
mil.
keep it,
So it'd be $200,000 difference.
just amend it down.
Okay.
Depending on what the final.
Does Nancy need to vote
the
for it?
final.
Maybe Nancy should support it, because then she can bring it up on the floor.
Okay, what we're talking,
Well, anyway. Okay. Okay, so
we're
someone.
talking about in 2018, if it's 1 mil,
Yeah.
it's $30 million you generate, approximately. If it is the .9863, it's $29,800,000, so it's $200,000 difference. Now, what will it be,
Yeah, it's not that much for all, divided by all those people.
what would it be in,
But
because
they wanted- they
home
can get
values go up
information.
too, right?
Absolutely.
So you're gonna be impacted by that,
Mhm.
so you might not lose
It's not
200,000.
Remember,
But you wouldn't gain either if it's not 1 mil.
Remember, what's gonna happen is the rate's gonna fall.
I mean,
Right.
it's down, so it doesn't affect me.
So we can
Right.
only go up CPI or 5%.
I figure the communities
whichever's
want it.
less.
Rate of inflation, whatever's
That's
lower, yeah.
right. That's right. So at the end of the day, and then that gets back to my point about, okay, so if you're
Yeah.
going from .9863 to $1, what's the impact on a $200,000
I know.
home?
I know.
You're talking $1.37. That's it for the whole year.
Right. No, I'm picking up what you're laying down, I just wanted to see what the numbers
No,
were.
that's-
And yeah, it's a slippery slope.
Okay.
Voting.
And again, the
You get
question
you get
here
Maybe.
is, what are we putting before the voters? The voters are ultimately going to make this decision as to whether they support this or not. In 2016, the voters in these communities were overwhelmingly willing to
Yeah, it
increase
is the
from
opt-in.
1.59
They want
mil
it.
to a 1.0.
That's what I mean.
We're asking that we maintain
Yeah.
the level that the voters approved in 2016, which was the 1.0. And we want to ask the voters their willingness to approve a 1.0. So it's just a matter of putting it before the voters is what you're being asked to do, is allow the voters to decide.
Okay, one more.
Go ahead.
You can't call it a renewal though on the ballot.
We would put the language of renew and increase. We do recognize we have to
You
have
have
the word.
Oh, there's a
increase.
ballot. Isn't there
Yeah, that's-
language here? Did
The
you guys
language in
see?
there, it says renew from
It's somewhere in
.9,
there.
whatever it is,
You guys find that
to
somewhere.
an increase to
It's in?
1.
1 mil.
Correct.
Okay.
We did discuss
Okay,
that.
it's
Language
in
does
here.
have to say
Yeah.
increase.
If there's any change,
It's in
then
here,
again.
Bob, it's on
Here's
your,
the,
Yeah, it's in
here's the
It's in
language
here
where
on
we
the-
say,
on the fifth
In the
page of
ballot.
your PDF.
should the,
5 PDF, it's in there.
renewed and increased. So we're renewing the millage, but we're also increasing it, so, and then we say it up here as well.
Right, because it goes from
Yeah.
.9863 to 1.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
So it's
Three
renewed.
different, yeah, so it definitely says renewed and
Actual
increased.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had to do that.
All right, thank you.
It's actually an accurate, actual.
Yeah,
truth.
see, I mean, they're telling the truth.
Which is good.
If your
Yeah,
community
that's
doesn't
what-
want it, your township board or your city board, you
All right, what-
have to put
what
it
do we-
on. Commissioner Kowa, you know what I mean?
I guess when we rolled back the millage, the county millage, we got all kinds of pushback from some people who wanted to use the money otherwise, that it was only roughly $10 a year or something like that. So I feel personally that I would like to hear from these communities and make sure if they're on board with it and they want to, renew and override the Headley Amendment. But for now, I am going to make an amendment, and it could change when it gets to the full board, that we keep it at the current millage rate of .98.
863.
9863.
Support that amendment.
Okay, Commissioner Kowa?
This, to you, Madam Chair, when you say you want to hear from the community, are you done with the community that pay the taxes or the ones that?
I don't know, Commissioner Kowa.
The ones that pay it.
Okay, and you supported it?
I did.
Okay.
So we just need to
Do you need to restate it?
You need to,
Restate that amendment again?
yes, so now therefore be it resolved. Fourth line down where it says Transportation Authority Service Area, the proposition of establishing a .9863 mill rate for the years 2018 through 2021 and on, continuing.
There's a couple of places in there.
We changed the.
So wherever reference is 1 mil, it would be changed to .9863.
No, not above that, because it refers to 2014.
Oh, okay.
It's the whereas right next to it.
Well, that will allow it to be on the regular agenda too, though, so then they can get their.
Just be clean and simple.
So just the now therefore be it resolved.
Yeah, because they're requesting that other whereas right below it.
It's just the permissive, not allow them to put it on the ballot.
Right.
Commissioner Hoffman?
I just want to say that if we take this to the full board and the opt-in communities they don't have any problem with it, I'm an opt-out community, I'm not going to have any problem with it. So if that's their consensus, which I'm suggesting it probably will be because the overwhelming percentage have passed by, but unless they have a problem with it, though.
I would agree.
So this will bring it to the floor, not on consent agenda, and I'm thinking it's gonna work out like this proposal right here. I mean.
And that's May 2nd, right? May 2nd is
Yeah.
the next meeting?
Yes, yeah, so it will go on the agenda.
At
So we'll do,
9:30, right?
yeah.
Well, first
Are we
of all-
morning or night?
I think it's a night meeting.
AM.
I think that one's a night meeting.
Night meeting.
It's 7
Because we were
p.m.
morning
7
last
p.m.
time.
Oh, yeah, it is, sorry.
Yeah, it's a night meeting.
Well, first,
Yippee.
your questions were excellent, and secondly, we appreciate all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you
All right,
guys very
it was a
much.
great presentation too, so.
We'll need a roll call vote
Okay.
on the amendment.
You guys better get going, the
So,
Smart Bus will be here in like 7 minutes.
So we need a roll call on the amendment, so just, I think, well, yeah, we can figure it on the floor.
Fleming,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Kowal,
Yes.
Kopinger, is absent. Quarles? Yes. Long,
Yes. All right, so we'll go on the regular agenda
and
then.
then as amended, the resolution.
And then we have to roll call on the resolution as amended. So let's get
Hoffman?
out of here.
Yes.
Kowal,
Yes.
Quarles? Yes. Fleming,
Yes.
Long?
Yes.
We need
Right.
Oh. Oh.
Oh, somebody has.
Yes,
No.
when it's about no.
Even with the amendment?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, so go on the regular agenda, that's true, oh yeah. Okay,
Quarles is changed.
okay, yeah, we need it on the regular agenda, correct. That's okay, because we have discussion. Okay,
Okay.
all right,
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
I think it's
Okay.
Oh, I love it.
So it's May 2nd.
Global warming is back.
Is the commissioner meeting?
It's at night.
Yeah.
That's Wednesday, yeah.
You said you want to hold a town hall meeting in my district.
I didn't do anything.
But I can tell you my.
No, I'd just like to hear in any way,
So-
shape,
so I
or
think
form
Imagine
that they're
your
okay with,
meeting,
you know,
wanna be there,
doing the Headley
it's at
override. I don't want to assume they are.
7:30 at night.
So
I
I,
can speak for my
Okay.
district. It's not-
Because I had it.
Yeah, we would be certainly happy to bring a number of people.
you don't have to bring them, just written communications, whatever, okay? I just want to know that they're okay with that.
Happy to either come or send statements. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation.
Good area. Good area.
Oh, wait a minute, do they go? We just have communications.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hi.
To adjourn the meeting?
No, we better do, yeah.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, we have communications.
Enough said.
She went off the thing too.
I don't want to stop calls per se.
Yeah.
Happy to serve.
Thank you, thank you, nice to see you, hope you don't have to night, come an evening. You gotta come an evening that far? Thank you, it was a good presentation. Thank you, thank you. We'll see ya. Think it will be.
Different sizes of people. This guy is like 7 feet tall.
Yeah, okay, we just have one more item, just communications, so we can get a motion to receive and file that, we could wrap it up. So communications, we need a motion to receive and file those. Moved by Commissioner Fleming, supported by Commissioner Hoffman. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And then any other business?